What we're going to do is, in the final closing session, what we're going to try is something a bit new. We're going to try and use your feedback to frame our closing comments. So if I could ask Huliang to join me back on the stage, please, who's going to help me with these closing comments. Of course, the UNDP have been one of the co-organisers of this event. So, Huliang Zhu, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Right, let's just stand on the stage here and we'll do this standing up. So the first thing we did was thank you to those of you who responded to the survey on the app already. If you haven't done so, please continue to do so because the feedback is really important. But thank you to those who've already given us the feedback. We had plenty of it. We get some verbatim, some written comments, and we get some numerical comments. As usual, some of the written comments are quite interesting. We had a comment that the meal was too big, followed by somebody else who said, the meal was too small. We had somebody else who said, where was the meat? And someone else who said, I loved the vegetarian option. So, the beauty of diversity, right? But seriously, most of you talked a lot in the verbatims about wanting more time to dive deeper into the conversation and maybe having more challenge and more debate about some of the subjects. And Huliang, I wonder if you have an observation on that.
I think this is sort of expected because when we talked with Tony earlier about the design, and we decided that we will go for all 17 goals. Okay, so in a way it is an appetizer for future entries. Okay, so that probably is why we couldn't go to details. One reason at least. I think.
A vegetarian appetizer, everybody. Okay, we then asked some questions about partnership. So we had 3 questions on partnership. First question was, I have a clearer vision of the business partnership opportunities the SDGs present by taking action around the SDGs. 65% of you agreed or strongly agreed with that statement. Only 2% disagreed with that statement. The second, I already have or will now be aligning our organization's sustainability initiatives with the SDGs. 57% of you agreed or strongly agreed with that statement. Only 5% disagreed. And I met people whose organizations we may partner with to facilitate greater change. So in this conference, you met people who you may partner with in the future. 70% agreed or strongly agreed. How do you feel about that, Huliang?
I agree. I agree. I certainly agree. I think for me, not only did I learn quite a lot, although I couldn't attend every session, but in the limited exposure that I had, to different sessions, I definitely learned a lot, right? And also I think for me, also the value is that I connected with governments, right? I also connected with companies with which, some of which we have been working with, some of which we will now work with. So I think the value to me personally has been enormous, so really.
And I think everyone would agree with me that the UNDP's attitude towards more open partnerships and broader partnerships has been very well welcomed as well.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
I think so.
So now, no, I've got it, it's not working. I was getting so excited we were going to do some live polling with your phones, but not working, Natasha? No. So I'm going to do this the old-fashioned way. I'm going to poll you with your hands because the IT has failed us. So we wanted to try and get some real live feedback. And we had 5 answers. I'm not going to do that by hand. So the first one we're going to do is we were going to ask you how much you knew about the SDGs before you arrived and how much you now know about the SDGs afterwards. So rather than do all that, which would be interesting, I'm just going to do a very simple question. How many of you feel, I'm going to ask you to put your hand up in one of 3 answers. You know nothing more than you knew before, you know a bit more than you knew before, or you know a lot more than you knew before. Okay, and then we'll between us decide what the ratio is. So how many of you don't really feel like you've learned very much? Don't look around. I want you to be honest. 1 person. Okay, thank you. How many of you feel you've learned a bit? Thank you.
Okay, the same people can raise hands again.
And how many of you feel like you've learned a lot? So I would say that was about 60% learnt a bit and about 40% a lot?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess that matches sort of, you'd like to go deeper, right?
Yes, I think it's fair. I think it's reasonable. And because the time is very short, right, for each session, okay? I think one of a few comments is that there's not enough time for questioning, for discussion, right? I think this reflects it.
Yeah.
But generally, I mean, it's generally positive, I would think.
Okay, well, I'm going to have a follow-up on that, which wasn't on here. How many of you would come back to learn even more? Straight question. Yes. Good. So
100%.
100%. There we go.
Not exactly, but close.
Close. No, that was a precise 100. I could see it. If we then had a question about what would you like to know more about, and you weren't. We had 5 questions here. So I'm going to really ask you to be honest here. I'm going to ask you 4 questions, and you're only allowed to put your hand up twice. Okay, so give us an idea of what are the things you'd like to know most about. I'll read them out to you, think about it, and then you can have 2 votes out of the 4 questions. Does that make sense? Okay, this is fantastic old day technology, right? Okay, the first is creating effective partnerships. The second is the interconnectivity of the goals. The third was tools that I can use to help me implement the SDGs. And the fourth was a deeper understanding of the goals. So those are the 4, okay? Effective partnerships, interconnectivity, tools, and deeper understanding. You've got 2 votes. So the first one, creating effective partnerships. Okay. Logged. Interconnectivity. Slightly less. Tools that I can use. Ooh. More. And a deeper understanding of the goals.
It's a tough call.
Tough call.
Yeah, tough call.
Are you going to call it?
Okay, maybe we should write it down, see, if we're on the same page. I don't have paper, right? So I write on my hand. Okay, right. Okay, so I will write my number.
You write yours down. So we're going to do an ordering here. Here we go.
We can compare. Okay, so we didn't coordinate. Okay.
Okay, which one did you have as the highest one?
I think number 3 in reverse order.
Number 3 was.
Oh no, number 2 and number 3.
Number 2 and number 3.
The tools, I think.
Perfect.
Definitely the winner. Yeah.
Right. Number 3 was the winner.
Two was the winner.
2 was the winner. The interconnectivity was the winner. I had that first equal with 3, which was the tools.
Right.
So there we go.
Right.
Thank you. So thank you for that. We will. That would have been a bit better with. Oh, sorry. We've got one last question on this. You've got 1 of 3 votes. Can you envisage the SDGs impacting your business or your organisation? 1, yes, very soon. 2, yes, within 5 to 10 years. Or 3, no, not ever. Okay? So 1 was yes, very soon. 2 was in a while, and 3 was never. Okay, so let's have a vote for 1, yes, soon. Okay. How about yes, but in a while, 5 to 10 years? Okay, and no, not ever. I think you're holding up a camera rather than actually voting. We almost had one.
Right.
How do you?
No, I think definitely, most companies or businesses are going to take action very soon. I think that's very clear.
And we had a lot of talk about urgency.
Yes, definitely. I think a lot of the discussion, I've given a lot of interviews when I was here, and it's all about climate. It's all about climate. Right? The point is that you really have to take action now. I think the last section was just perfect to close on this subject. Mm. And just Mark cited the numbers. Right? If you just use driverless cars, the efficiency for car use is 15 times. The infrastructure is 4 times more efficient. Just imagine the reduction on the need for unnecessary consumption. Right? So we have it, the immediate action.
The time is now. So your final question. You talked about it a lot, and you opened in your opening comment about a new development era. Right. If we came back here in 12 months' time, given this urgency question, what would you have done differently in 12 months' time from now?
So that's an ambush question, sort of like ambush. And I think definitely I will invest a lot more internally to build our staff capacity. I will hire more people. Sounds a lot, but one or two at least. Okay. And we will organize the specialized trainings for us to understand how to work with the private sector. I'll give you an example. When we go to private sector or other entities that have funds, right? Normally we tell people how good we are first, okay? So we're from UNDP, okay? We're so good, this is what we have done, okay? That puts people off very quickly. Right? So we have to talk in the way and in languages that people understand. We have to show our value first, right? So I would say really, a lot of our people do not understand this. So I'm going to hire trainers to go through all offices, to make our people aware that our value is not to present how good we are, it's to present what we can do for others. So this is what we do. What else? I think more, partnership proposals, right? And essentially more, partnership initiatives that we present to our partners to see what we can do. Definitely a few things.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So
Julian.
may I ask you a question? I don't know.
No.
Or maybe ask others.
If you can ask me a question, you can. This is real ambush, by the way.
I think the question you asked me is really critical, right? Essentially, it's about what actions you are going to take after this conference, right? If we come back in 1 year's time to have the same discussion about SDGs, so my question is that I want to turn this question to everyone in this room. Okay, what would you have done in 1 year's time, and what would you have told us by the time that we meet again next year?
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So there's the challenge. Hopefully we will be back here next year and we will meet again. And there's the challenge. What will you come and tell us you've done differently? Brilliant.
Okay.
Julian, thank you so much
Thank you.
for
Thank you.
your leadership.
No, thank you. My pleasure. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Julian Xu, I think a remarkable leader who's really looking to do something very different with the UN agency, which is really fantastic. So it's now down to you, as we just said, to go and do things differently. Let me give you my very final thoughts to take away as you go home. You go back to your respective jobs. I just thought I'd go back to the 5 thoughts I started with. Remember, business, you go back, business, your organization, should align your strategy to support what the government is trying to do. That is a good strategic thing and a good profit-motivated thing to do. Remember that change needs to be at scale, not tokenism, as Minister Wong referred to yesterday. We have heard over and over about the interconnection of the goals. And we will need unlikely, and I like the word that was used this morning, unthinkable partnerships to be developed if we're going to work in this interconnected world. Talk about the targets where you can. Dig deep, because the targets is where you can actually get to things you can measure and are specific. So let's talk about targets, not goals. Business understands those. And the SDGs will be achieved at a national or a sub-national level. I heard them talking today more about sub-national engagement. That's as good as national engagement, sometimes better. But it will not be done at a global level. It's going to be done at a sub-level. Those are my 5 key points. Just to remind you, the SDGs have been ratified by 193 countries of the world. They are the best roadmap we have. We've talked a lot over the last 2 days about urgency. Some of you are probably thinking, these are not perfect. They are not perfect, we know that. But we don't have time to wait for a better map. They're there, let's use what we have. Lawrence Wong talked about the major structural challenges we face in the world and the changes that will be needed to fix them. And Eric Solheim gave us some hope and talked about how we have fixed similar kinds of problems in the past by collective action. He talked about fixing acid rain. He talked about the ozone layer and closing the ozone layer. And everyone over the last 2 days has talked passionately about seeking to be part of the solution through partnership activity, whether it's UN agencies, government ministers, NGOs, private sector, or civil society. All need to be involved. All we now need to do is deliver on what we discussed by being brave and showing true leadership. On that note, thank you to all our speakers, our facilitators, and our panelists. Thank you to our volunteers who've been helping us get to all the different breakout rooms on time and in the right place. Thank you to our supporters and our sponsors. Thank you to the UNDP for supporting this event, and a huge thank you to Tony and his team at Global Initiatives for a fantastic event. I think that deserves a round of applause. And finally, of course, a thank you to all of you for coming, for being so engaged, for being so active, and for so participative. Now's the time for action. Finally, remember this zero waste event. Badges as you leave, please, in the collection boxes so that Global Initiatives can genuinely recycle them. Have great trips home, and until next time, goodbye. Except it's not quite goodbye, because we have coffee next door, and there is the Singapore Committee for UN Women Project Inspire Finals, for those of you who've registered for that, which is in the breakout room 5, which is on this floor across the way there. Thank you very much, everybody.